Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fredachando channel, and as always, I want to thank you for taking your time to watch our videos. Now today there are fresh details that are emerging on the final days as the former president Uhuru Kenyatta made frantic efforts to ensure that Raila ascended to power. But because of higher authorities that he could not defeat, he sat down and watched the presidency melt in their very own eyes as it went to the president William Samoei Ruto. Very many people have argued that perhaps after the handshake, Mr. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta was only managing Raila Amolo Odinga, and that he was never committed to give power to former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. But contrary to these allegations, I will submit to you that President, or rather the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, was committed to hand over the baton to Raila Amolo Odinga. Before we delve deeply into this matter, I want to request you, if you're watching our videos for the first time, please subscribe to our channel. Click the subscribe button and don't forget to click the notification bell so that whenever we do another video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. To all the subscribers, thank you very much for the subscription, and to any other person, all the individuals who are supporting this channel in one way or the other, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, after the handshake, you saw what happened. Gradually and slowly by slowly, President Uhuru Kenyatta started campaigning very openly for Raila Amolo Odinga. He first broke his silence in Sagana Lodge when he met people from Mount Kenya, and he told them very categorically that he had really he would have wanted that he hands over power to Raila Amolo Odinga as the fifth president. This did not happen. And I want to ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. Who is the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces, be it the police, the military, the Kenya Navy, Kenya Air Force, and the Kenya Army, the GSU, the Record Squad, and everything? They fall under the president. He is the one who commands them, maybe to go to war whenever there is an internal or external attack. But how comes the president did not manage to capture the presidency? Because their opponents, who is the president now, William Samoei Ruto, and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua, has alluded to allegations that there was a state capture. Now, after the campaigns and into the elections, the former president had already appointed a transition committee. And this committee consisted of people who were viewed to be perhaps political nemesis of the president today, the former deputy president William Ruto. People like Fred Matiang'i, people like Kameru, who was the NIS boss, people like Karanja Kibicho, all the men, most of them forming the Security Advisory Board. When Kenyans and the international community saw the appointment, saw the members of the transition committee, they knew that it was over for William Samoei Ruto. And so the question is, what really happened? And I want to take you straight to Bomas of Kenya, where the counting of the votes and the verification of the votes was taking place. At some point, when the results were trickling in, it was a 50-50 kind of formation. At some point, Ruto was ahead of some few numbers, and at some point, Raila Amolo Odinga overtook him. And there was a screen at Bomas that was showing Kenyans and the world at large the results. Then came the moment when the screen in Bomas stopped showing results. This raised eyebrows because the president was following the events in State House. Members of the transition committee were following, and of course, the members of the Security Advisory Board were also following the results. It was a really hotly contested elections. On one side was Raila Odinga with his handshake partner, with all the security apparatus. And on the other hand was Mr. Ruto, who had alleged that there was state capture of everything. So when the screen in Bomas stopped showing the results, the president did not wait. He swung into action. He ordered Mr. Kenya to call Mr. Chebukati to inform him that they were going to, compare notes. Ladies and gentlemen, the main agenda that took the Security Advisory Board, consisting of even Mr. Ogola, who is the Deputy Chief of General Staff, yani jeshi yote, ni kama jeshi ilikuwa Bomas. They all went there with one agenda, to ask Mr. Chebukati why the screen had stopped showing the results. And I also tend to think that they wanted to compel him to do whatever they wanted. And then it is reported that after receiving this phone call, Mr. Chebukati did not wait for them because he knew what was going to happen. These are things that are not reported, but they are the secret details that are now emerging. That immediately Mr. Kenya called Mr. Chebukati. Mr. Chebukati also gave a call to Mr. William Ruto. And he told him, look, Mr. Kenya and the Security Advisory Board members are coming here, and I don't know what is going to happen, so be on alert. The president, being who he is, Mr. Ruto, called the forces that he knew very well were going to stop the members of the Security Advisory Board. So William Ruto called the American Embassy and the British High Commission. And the two countries, that is the USA and Britain, sent a representative to Bomas immediately. And so when the members of the Security Advisory Board arrived at Bomas, Mr. Chebukati kept them waiting for 1 hour. And the question that I want to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, if the president has sent members of that caliber, Matiang'i, Ogola, Mr. Kameru, name them, where did Chebukati get the audacity to keep them waiting for 1 hour? Mr. Chebukati could only do this knowing very well that he had some backup. And this backup must have been more powerful than the team that was sent to Bomas. And I want to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, if the president is the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces, and he has sent members of the forces also to say to Bomas, who is he that could be more powerful than the president, who has got the sword, the constitution? Who could have been more powerful than the president? More powerful than the members that were sent? The NIS boss, the police inspector general, minister in charge of interior cabinet secretary, the permanent secretary in the interior, Karanja Kibichu, the head of the military, the head of armed forces, deputy head of all the armed forces. Who could have been more powerful than this? That gave Chebukati the audacity, the courage, the lever to keep them waiting for 1 hour. And what was Mr. Chebukati doing during this 1 hour while he kept them waiting? Do you think he was busy taking tea or taking a nap or sleeping? Mr. Chebukati was preparing himself, waiting for the representatives from the United, from Britain, and the representative from the United States of America. And when they arrived, Chebukati also Chebukati briefed them, and then he welcomed the members of the Security Council into a meeting chamber. So these members arrived and they started introduction. They said, "We are Mr. So and so and so, and we are worried about the situation in Kenya, what has happened to the screen at the Bomas." And Mr. Chebukati also, took that opportunity to introduce the members of his staff and the delegation that was there. Among them, the members of the Security Council were shocked to realize that Mr. Chebukati had amidst their staff members of the international community. And so Mr. Ogola and the team, the Attorney General and Mr. Macheni and Karanja Kibichi, could not do anything because ask anybody who understands international relations that whenever there is an ambassador or a representative of the USA, that is like the president. If today the Kenyan government wants to arrest you and you find your way into the US embassy or the British High Commission, their embassy, you will not be arrested unless they decide to kick you out. Because that embassy is like USA itself. That embassy ni kama nchi, ni kama umeingia dunia nyingine. So when these representatives came to Bomas, our delegation, the delegation that had been sent by Mr. Kenyatta, Uhuru, were left with no choice but to retreat. They came back and reported what had happened, and Mr. President knew that it was all over. It was then that the president knew that they could not secure the seat as they had thought. So he called Raila Odinga and explained to Raila what had happened. They immediately convened an impromptu meeting to try and discuss what could happen, and they realized that the forces that was supporting William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua was so much deep, the forces were so many, so powerful that they could do nothing. So when Mr. Odinga came a few days ago to reveal to the nation that it was foreign capture, it was true. The only thing that he did not tell the Kenyans and the world at large is that he knew all this even before the results were announced. The US ambassador gave a travel advisory that their members should not go to Kisumu. Why? Apparently, she thought that there will be violence. Kenya had been peaceful, and I do not understand where she got the report that there could be violence in Kisumu. She did this when the result was when the president was about to be declared, and during the Supreme Court verdict. Whoever informed the U.S. ambassador that there was going to be, you know, violence in Kisumu, I don't know. Then came a phone call from the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Gutierrez. And this phone call, even though Mr. Odinga reported that they had something like a cordial talk, and that Mr. Gutierrez had raised concerns about the peace, not only in Kenya but in the area. And Raila says that he had promised that he was going to be peaceful until the end of the process. I want to submit to you that this phone was about a kind of intimidation. And Mr. Odinga was given a stern warning not to take people to the streets. Otherwise, Hague was waiting. They threatened him. And he knew very well, even before the verdict, that things were not well. And I want to believe that they were not shocked because they considered what had transpired from the time they were in Bomas. Do you really think, ladies and gentlemen, if I may ask you, that Mr. Matiang'i, Fred Matiang'i, Karanja Kibicho, Uhuru Kenyatta could sit down and watch the police harass members of the Azimio, people like Ledamo Lekina and Lekanchori, being harassed and beaten in Bomas? If he's the commander-in-chief and all the police fall under Matiang'i, do you think they could sit down and just watch? Who, for example, sent the police to Bomas? Because remember, at some point, Mr. Matiang'i was in charge of the police that he could even change the security personnel of the president of deputy president. There was a time that he reduced them, and the deputy president, who is now the president, complained. If Matiang'i had the powers of even reducing the security apparatus within the deputy president's office, what happened in Bomas? Ladies and gentlemen, there could only be one explanation: that Mr. Matiang'i, Karanja Kibichu, people like Mr. Wamalwa had been told to keep off the elections. They had been given a warning. There was that capture. They were subdued. And so they watched helplessly. The president was there. He could do nothing. Mr. Matiang'i was there. He could do nothing. So the international community, the European Union, had decided long time ago that they wanted to support our President Uhuru Kenyatta, and the Azimio party knew very well, at least Mr. Odinga and the chairman of Azimio, Mr. Kenyatta, knew very well that there were powers beyond them. And this is the reason why Mr. President watched helplessly, watched victory melting away from them, and there was nothing he could do. And I want to submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that Kenya, in as much as you think that we are autonomous, we are still under the rule of the Queen. We are still being controlled by the United Nations. We are still being controlled by the USA and Britain. I don't know what you think, but I'm submitting to you that Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta was under siege. There were powers that were beyond him. And that is the reason why he watched William Ruto being sworn in, William Ruto being declared as the winner, and he could do nothing. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Nice.